Welcome to the Mom and podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you make your ellipses count. I'm Suzanne Kearns, mom and writer, LGBTQ and sex ed advocate, and this week, driver's license renewer and TSA pre-check enroller, like back to back, which basically means I am a waiting room sitter, I think, is what it's going to be my whole day on Friday. Yes.
You'll just be so glad you did that pre-check, though.
I
Changes
hope
your
so.
life. And I am Missy Stevens, mom and writer, foster child advocate. And this week I'm hot. That's it. I'm hot.
It's stupid hot.
It's stupid. I hate it here. I don't want to be here anymore. It's hot.
Anyone going through menopause should just be given a ticket out of Texas in June.
Yes.
It's so
June through
mean.
September. I just need 4 months off, please.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Today we are so excited to be welcoming Estelle Erasmus to the pod. Estelle is a mom and author of the brand new, if you're looking behind me on the YouTube there, Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published. She's also a professor of writing at New York University, the host of the Freelance Writing Direct podcast, and the former All About the Pitch columnist for Writer's Digest, and has written a wide variety of articles, including quite a few viral ones that you have most definitely read. Especially, we're going to link to it, the How to Bully Proof Your Child, which definitely made the rounds. She also received the 2023 NYU School of the Professional Studies Teaching Excellence Award, is an American Society of Journalists and Authors Award winner, and was a cast member in the inaugural New York City production of Listen to Your Mother's Show, which we have talked about quite a few times here on the podcast. Love it. And welcome. So excited to have you here.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I love being able to talk about my journey and especially the focus on the woman, not necessarily the mom. You're more than a mom.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. We learned a lot about you from your bio. Your bio is so impressive. But we would like to dig in a little more to the Estelle 101, kind of where you started, how you got to where you are today, and any kind of pivots and gaps along the way.
Sure. Well, in a funny way, and I didn't talk about this in the book, but when I started, I had a college degree from Boston University, and I thought I wanted to make as much money as possible because I wanted to really enjoy the city.
Yes. Good goals.
And so I became an executive assistant and I made good money, but it was limiting. And I wasn't a very good executive assistant because I wasn't very good at making coffee and I didn't know how to use a filter.
Oh my gosh.
I would rewrite everybody's emails and memos and things like that. And they didn't always appreciate it. And so I realized that I needed to make a change. And so I ended up working in book publishing. And then from there, I went to public relations and I worked in public relations. And I talked about that in the book, how I worked on the TV show Shining Time Station and would go to Toronto and would film with George Carlin. It was so much fun.
Oh
That
my
was so much
gosh.
fun. And after a while, I realized that the media people that I was dealing with, I really liked talking to the editors of publications. And I thought, I need to do that. And so I parlayed my public relations writing press release experience into getting a job in the beauty department of Woman's World magazine. And that was my first job in publishing. And I can't say I never looked back because I did do a pretty major pivot after some time in publishing, but I started in Woman's World and then I went back in the day, and I don't know if it's the same anymore. Once you learned how to run a magazine from the ground up, you could pretty much move very quickly up the ranks. If you started out learning, I was at Woman's World, I had 7 deadlines a week. I learned how to write on the go.
Yeah.
It was even before iPhones. I was, writing on the go on a pad. And I did photo shoots. I worked with photographers. I worked with beauty experts from John Frieda to Orbe to just so many of the top experts, Georgette Mossbacher, who was big in the day, Marina Balmy. And I learned how to write fast, how to write effectively, and
Mhm.
how to write for the reader. I learned service journalism, which is my
Yeah.
whole book is pretty much a service journalism because I am offering tips, expert advice, ways to be compelling in your writing in a very reader friendly way, packaged in a way that's going to enhance a reader's life in
Mhm.
some way, whether they write their story or they just feel inspired to do journaling in a different way. Whatever it is, whether you're a retiree or somebody going to college and want to learn how to write an essay better, or
Yeah.
somebody who wants to write your novel, you want to write your story, or you want to help someone write their story, you will learn what you need to do in terms of essays and articles for my book. And that's was kind of my mission. That's my mission as a writing coach. That's why my students have been so successful because I've parlayed everything I've learned from both sides of the publishing wall. I became a magazine editor in chief of 5 national consumer publications, including Hachette's Body by Jake, where
Oh, yeah.
David Pecker, we know him. He was in the news quite a
Uh,
lot.
Mhm, mhm.
I met him at an event and I talk about it in my book, what happened there. And I would say with a combination of curiosity and bravery, I was able to make many pivots in my career. And we can talk about a singular pivot that I made into medical education when I was dealing with infertility.
Yeah, that's one that I was not aware you'd done. And in fact, in preparing for this podcast, I've learned a lot about you. And through your book, I've learned a lot that I didn't know about you because I kind of picture you in this glamorous New York life and kind of not Devil Wears Prada, but it's just like just that kind of wheeling and dealing
Yeah.
and all the glamour and all the glitz. And I would talk about moms who make their ellipses count. You really have done it all. So I was
Mhm.
really shocked to learn that you actually had paused your career for the birth of your daughter. And I thought that was really interesting. And that probably was like, hear the tires screeching sound effect as far as like the life you were living and then like
Mhm.
Yeah.
stopping and the opposite of glamour and glitz
Yes.
and being wined and dined. So what was that process like? Was it planned or was it just one of those things like me where it just out of necessity you decided to pause? What was that for you?
Yeah. So, as a single woman living in New York City and then a little bit outside the city in New Jersey, I really got to maximize all the benefits of the city and of kind of the glamour of publishing back in the day, which it was
Mhm.
a lot of hard work. Don't get me wrong. I did grunt work. I did every kind of work you can imagine. But there were the lunches, there were the dinners, there were the
Nice.
events. I would schedule
Yeah.
events a whole week long. I would go home at 9, 10 at night, and I would start the next day. And I had the energy, the enthusiasm, the ambition, and it was wonderful. And when I started getting higher, which happened very quickly because, again, I was working in publications that were small. It was almost like the precursor to the digital of today, where I
Right.
did everything with these publications, not Woman's World, but the ones following. So
Mhm.
I was able to rise to editor in chief, where I had small staffs and maybe publication of 200,000, something
Mhm.
like that. And so we were working in a very hands-on manner. I curated content. I did all that. Now that did not fit with the next element of life. And I was the dating diva.
Oh my
I
goodness.
I taught classes at the Learning Annex, how to meet your mate or just to date, power dating. Me and Ramona from Housewives she was teaching her thing, and she was
Oh
when she
my
was married.
gosh.
When she was married,
Oh gosh.
You need
and
a memoir. You don't need
I
a how to write book. You need to write a memoir.
that might be next. So I ended up, being this dating expert, and I had a possible deal with I was speaking with the people that Judith Regan used to have a publisher, and I
Mhm.
met my husband, my now husband of 18 years. And I realized I didn't want to be the dating diva anymore.
Mm.
I liked this guy. This guy fit all the categories that I was looking for. And he was definitely a step outside my comfort zone because he wasn't my religion. He wasn't from this country. He's younger than me. So it was really a whole different step. But I
Mhm.
took the leap, as I've done many times in my life, and I've never regretted it. And I put the kibosh. I called my then agent at the time, Jack Scoble, who's passed away years ago, and he was a lovely, lovely man. And I said, I don't want to be the dating diva anymore. And he said, "You're kidding." And I said, "Nope."
No, I'm done. I'm done.
So that was done. And so I married my husband. I never thought I wanted kids. I was like, I'm this, I'm a balloon, I'm a kite, I'm a creative entity.
I can't
And
be held down.
I can't, exactly, you can't tame me. And after a year of marriage, I looked at him and I was like, this guy would make an excellent father. And
Oh.
I thought, yeah. And I thought, I can't not give this to him. And I thought, know what kind of mother I'd make. We'll see about that. But I thought I loved him so much and I wanted to give him a child. But then I dealt with the infertility journey. Like,
Yeah.
and also it was the aftermath of 9/11,
Mm.
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
everything dried up. All the places where I was launching publications for this publisher and that, Esthétique, the American Breast Cancer Guide, all these different publications, everything dried up. And
Right.
so I thought, what am I going to do? And somebody, I think I left a job that I had because it closed down. Body by Jake, which was by Hachette. I think they ran for about a year. And then it closed down because some of the business plans didn't really fit what the publisher was doing. And so I was kind of out of a job and I thought, well, I don't want to be going into the city all the time. I don't want to stay up till 9, 10 o'clock at night and then start again. And so I forget how it happened. I think I took a temp job and I ended up in a medical education company and they
Uh-huh.
had so many perks. They came by, they said, "All right, we have a masseuse who's going to give everyone a massage
Oh,
now."
I
And
want to
you
work
know,
there.
it's only $20. And I was like, "Wait, am I allowed?" And I was like, "Ooh, I like this."
that sounds
And
amazing.
I thought, well, it's different than publishing, but it's interesting. And they really liked my background. They were like, you run magazines. Well, we have publications run by Eli Lilly, and we need somebody to edit it. And there's two types of medical education. There's CME, which is continuing medical
Mhm.
education. And there is the type that is more promotional. So I started with CME, and that was very regulated, but I still managed to find the creativity in it. There wasn't
Mhm.
that much. And then I did some promotional stuff, and I also learned how to write grants, how to read studies. And the best part of it was I was leaving the office at 5 every afternoon, which was wonderful because I could then go at 5 in the morning and get my fertility treatment.
There's probably a lot of stay-at-home moms or people who take a career pause that maybe do that
Yeah.
earlier in their career, and they don't have the benefit of all this amazing experience behind them, whereas you had all lived a full career by the time you started your family. So the pros and cons probably of each of those.
So I think that it's really interesting because I did segue into different fields, but I did use my skill set. So what I
Mhm.
couldn't do anymore was identify myself by my job. I'm the editor
Mm.
of, I'm the blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
invite me to your lunch. Nobody cared about me when I was in medical education. Nobody,
Right.
I mean, nobody was inviting me to the fashion shows. Nobody was inviting me to lunches.
Oh
And I
my
couldn't even,
gosh.
so that was, I had to really assess who I was, what I
Mhm.
brought to the table, aside from my title, aside from how the world viewed me or once viewed me,
Right.
Yes.
which
Oh my
brings
gosh, I so sympathize with that. I remember when I left my job, I was working on a remodel and doing some stuff, and I had been working on Disney and Apple. And so when you're negotiating on behalf of Disney and Apple, you usually tend to get what you want. And I was, negotiating with these kitchen remodelers and stuff, and they're just for some reason they just weren't sitting up and taking note of me as I was used to. And it's just, so I can imagine, yeah, that must have been a real shock to the system. When I mean, everybody I think feels that loss of identity when they don't have that business card or that title, but it's just
well,
magnified so much when you were given such special treatment in a lot of ways beforehand.
exactly. I learned the very privileged, entitled life, and then I lost it
Mm,
for years.
Yeah.
And that's okay because in the losing of it, I found myself.
love
And
that.
that I can never lose.
Right.
Yes.
Right. When you
And
came back after having a break, did you feel like you were starting from scratch or had you done enough
absolutely.
work? Like,
Nobody
yeah.
knew me. No, I mean, it was 7 years later. Publishing had changed dramatically.
Mm.
Print
Mhm.
publications were shutting down at an
Right.
alarming rate. My old heroes of yore, of Harper's Bazaar, I mean, Liz Tilber, she passed away sadly, and
Mhm.
other editors were leaving the field. The people that I had always looked up to and admired. People in the beauty industry were turning to manufacturing companies or
Yeah.
public relations. They were switching out of it. So there was a
Mhm.
whole groundswell of change happening in the industry. And a big thing that happened to me, even before getting back into it, was becoming a mother in midlife
Mhm.
Mhm.
because I had no support system besides my husband. I had
Mm.
no friends who were at that stage, and I've written about this a lot, who were at the stage of life where I was at. My peers that I'd grown up with, they had older kids by that
Yeah.
time, and
Mm.
I had a baby. And so I was very much a newbie in the motherhood world.
Mhm.
And when I decided I wanted to get back into publishing in some way, I was a newbie in the publishing world. And you mentioned what I said.
Oh, yes. Your line, when I am reemerged in 2009, I was a newbie in the publishing field I no longer recognized and which no longer recognized me. And I was like, oof, yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And it didn't come right away. So what happened, and I talk about it in the book, and it's such a pivotal moment in my life, and it's something that I believe we all share, is that I had gone to a reading group at a library with my toddler at the time. She was 18 months old. And I was just being at home, being with her
Yeah.
because my job in medical education had changed. The company got bought by another company, and all the pregnant women, save one, which was somebody else, were let go. And they had to keep one. And I was like the type of pregnancy where I literally had morning sickness 24/7.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, my
It was
goodness.
horrible. I would bring a Edie's lemon pop with me to the office of the medical education company I was working at,
Yes.
just doing grants all day long, doing grants. And I would suck on the lemon pop. And then for lunch, I would go to my car and I would take a nap in
Oh,
my
my
Oh.
God.
so I didn't care because I was nurturing, this new life within me. And I was so excited. I was in my third trimester when the company got sold and they let me go. And I was like, see you later. Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we went to the library and I talk about it in the book that my daughter stood up and began to dance in the middle. And I'd always been a journalist, an editor, journalist. I'd written articles, service-oriented articles with tips and information and interviewing people. I had not written personal essays that
Mhm.
were about me, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. And I sat down and I wrote a piece about my daughter and I called it And She Danced. And I talked about her dancing and how they looked at it. And, I pondered my possibilities. Had I ever been like that, ready and waiting to take on the world with no worry or fears of the future? Can I be like that again? That was the
Mm.
gist of it. And I wrote it up. And as so often happens in my life, something very synchronistic happened. And I had gone to I remember in the early days of the Mom and Me classes,
Oh, yes.
there was,
Yeah.
Meetup. It was meetup.com.
Oh, yeah.
And I was as obsessive as I'd been about editing and doing all the stuff that I did in professional, I became obsessive about being a mom, meaning that I had notifications on, like, my early phone when a meetup would happen. I'd be the quickest one to sign up for it and go for it. And I was
Yes.
going to a million of these meetups. I still felt like a fish out of water. I didn't know really what I was doing, but I brought my daughter and I tried to make friends.
Yeah.
So not so effectively. I was ghosted many times. Okay. So one mom said to me, "Oh, did you hear about this show? It's called Listen to Your Mother, and they're having auditions. If you have an essay, I think you said you're a writer, might want to go." And I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Wait, what? What?" I was like, "I did an essay. I have this essay." And I
Yeah.
remember being so nervous, even though I had this career behind me. I was so nervous. I didn't understand any
Oh,
of this.
that's so normal. We hear that from every coach we interview. It does not matter how amazing you have ever been in your pre-momming role, that when you do take that pause, the
Yes.
confidence can really, really take a dip. So now when you wrote that essay originally, were you submitting it anywhere or did you
No,
just
I
kind of
didn't.
wrote it for
Just
yourself?
wrote it.
I wrote it for myself, and then somebody told me I actually submitted it to Mamapedia. So it
Okay.
was on Mamapedia. And I don't know if that was later or before, I can't remember, but I went to the audition and I remember I was all like in a business suit and they asked me about my background. And for some reason, I didn't say, "I'm a former magazine editor in chief and and I've been on Rolanda and I was the dating diva." I didn't say any of that. I said, "I'm a communications professional." And that's how they have me in the bio.
Oh my
And
Interesting.
gosh. That
the,
is
dir-
so interesting. You
the,
totally
dir-
just stripped all of that.
Yes, I did, and the director of my show, which I ended up getting into, was Amy
Amy.
Wilson,
Mhm,
Oh my gosh.
mhm.
and it was the inaugural performance of Listen to Your Mother in New York City, and Abby Sher was in it, Alicia Reiner, who became big in Orange is the New Black, was in
Yeah.
it. Patty Chang Anker, who wrote
Mhm.
Some Nerve, Lessons Learned in Becoming Brave, and quoted me in the book.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a revelation. I loved doing it. And as we were talking for these 2 months that we did the rehearsals, that gave me purpose for the first time in a long time.
Mm.
They said they were talking about this thing called blogging. I said, and they all had these names, the mama thing, the this and
Back
that.
in the day. Yep.
Yeah.
And I said, what is this blogging thing? And they said, "Oh, it's so great. You write your stories. Look at Dooch and look at, they say, right? Deuce.
Deuce. Deuce.
Deuce.
Deuce,
Yeah.
sadly, yeah, she passed.
Yeah.
But like they said, you write your stories. And I'm like, "Oh, that's so great. How much do you make?"
$0.
Yeah.
Estelle, you don't make anything. I said, "Oh, why do you do it?" "Because you get people following you and you write your stories. And I was very, I respected these women and these women who were talking about other women like Wendy Aarons and
Yes.
all these bloggers and they were talking about Ann Imig and what she'd created with all the shows that all the bloggers and then they were talking about Blog Her. And I said, "What's Blog
Mhm.
Her?" They said, "Oh my God, you have to go to Blog Her." And I said, "Well, how do you go to Blocker?" And he goes, "Well, you just see the next one's coming up next year in New York City. You know, we have to go to Listen to Your Mother." And I said, "Well, what is there?" And I signed up to like find out about Blocker. And I also started a blog that I called Musings on Motherhood and Midlife. And I
Yes.
remember deeply researching how to do a blog. And I
Oh.
remember I was like crying because I created it myself. I bought a WordPress.org site rather than a WordPress.com
Oh,
because
no.
Oh.
all the research said that's better because if you ever want to
Oops.
monetize, no, if you ever want to monetize, .org was better to get for WordPress, not for my own site. My own site was a .com site on the WordPress.org house.
Oh,
Yeah,
Mhm.
interesting. Look at you
yeah,
working all the angles. See, you researched it. I just
I
started
did.
one.
And
Yeah, I just
so
willy-nilly started.
and so I remember, so I wrote a piece. I was also involved with an organization called Mothers and More, which is a now defunct nonprofit organization that I was on the board of directors for because I was very passionate about mission that they should value the unpaid work of mothering. The
Yes.
cooking, the cleaning, the chauffeuring, the everything that nobody really sees, but is intrinsic in child rearing that's
Mhm.
not valued by society. So I thought that was such an important organization. And I wrote a piece. I submitted it to Blog Her. I think it was on my blog called We Changed the Conversation. And I talked about the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which talked about equal pay for
Yep.
Mhm.
women. And I talked about mothers and more. And I won my first of 3 Blog Her Voice of the Year awards.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So I went to Blog Her and everybody was there from Listen to Your Mother and everybody then I met the other award winners, and then there were the Blog Her Voices of the Year who won, and they made speeches, and I wasn't one of them. I was one of the honorees. And then came into my first anthology because, they did a culmination of the Blog Her Voices of the
Mhm.
Year, which I loved being in. And so I thought, I want to get more involved in Blog Her. And then I learned who the heads were. And one of the names was, I want to say, Jory Desjardins, right?
Mhm.
And here is
That's an
where it's,
amazing name. That should be a character
I
in a
love
book
her
for
name.
sure.
I love her name. And here is where it gets really interesting because my life has always been full of synchronicity. When I was in traditional publishing, I met a writer who wrote a piece for me. Her name was Jory Desjardins.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we went to lunch and we had a really lovely lunch. And I said, I would love you to write more for me. And she said, well, I'm actually moving to California and I'm going to work on like a tech project.
Oh my
Mm.
gosh.
That tech project ended up becoming Blogger.
Love her.
And then it all goes around and around. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I
Amazing.
that is how it is in this world. And I can't tell you how many guests that we've had that have been well, we had Ann Emick on, so that was nice.
Her.
But in
And
the
Amy
blogger
and
world, and we
Wendy.
had Amy and the Listen to Your Mother world. Just it changes lives for so many people. And it really does feel like you fell into the right group and just the people that really spoke to you, that I don't know, your people. You found your people. But I'm curious if there's anything that would be advice that you could give to other moms who are maybe in the thick of it, who have not found those people yet.
Yeah.
They are still in that unpaid labor force, not feeling respected, feeling like they still, are trying to figure out what that identity is. Like looking back, are there some things that maybe you could have done during those years at home to not lose so much of yourself?
Yeah. I think I could have probably taken classes
Mhm.
earlier. I think
Yeah.
classes are a great way to get back into whatever area you want to be in.
Yeah,
I was more focused on building a mom community rather than a new professional community. And
yeah,
I think by doing classes or I don't think I could have done a retreat or anything like that, but even going to a conference for a weekend, I think that would have been another way to just start building a network. I'm not an introvert. There are many writers and bloggers who are introverts. I'm
For
not.
sure.
I'm an extrovert. I do need my downtime, and writing is a very solitary process.
Mhm.
But I do think that finding a sense of community in some way, whatever you have to do, whether you go to your local coffee shop and maybe somebody's going there the same time every day and you strike up a conversation, or going to the library, or going to a bookstore and seeing what activities they have and going and
Yeah.
supporting writers. You don't have to be a writer, but going to something, if you have some focus in your mind of something you want to do, start doing a little research to see the peripheral elements of
Mhm.
that. Whether you want to be an engineer or you want to look at construction, if you want to be a designer, go to museums and see
yeah.
what designers are doing, and then see if there's a cocktail night that is tied in. So you will meet people with similar interests. And I think that is a great way to start exploring those parts of your nature that you just naturally will not through motherhood. It's a self limiting profession.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
networking wise, for sure.
For
Yes.
sure. Well,
Yes.
we're quickly running out of time, but I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about your podcast before we get too close to the end. So, anyone who's listening may also be interested in writing, and after hearing you talk, may want to do some of the things you've done. So, they really need to check out Freelance Writing Direct. And we're just curious how you feel about podcasting. Have you enjoyed it? What are you doing with it? What's next?
I love it. One of the things when I was a magazine editor in chief, I would do a lot of television, and I loved live television
Mhm.
because I like that interchange of energy. And I
Yeah.
feel like obviously you have to prepare. And I talk a lot in my book about preparing and what to do when you're in a TV show or a radio show or a podcast. And you have to do the deep dive. But I do the deep dive into all my guests so that I have the right questions prepared, and then I don't stick to the script. I kind of like
Yeah.
you and I, the three of us have had a free flowing conversation. So, what's interesting about the podcast, and it's evolved, I started with a co host and I took it over solo in May, and also did some things that I really wanted to do, which was add the visual elements. So, I have six up on YouTube now, 6 of the episodes up on YouTube, and most of the subsequent episodes, unless they were taped a while ago, are gonna be on YouTube. So, it's kind of an interesting way that my past and my present is coinciding,
Yeah.
because I do believe that the most successful people, and this has been proven by research, have open networks rather than closed networks.
For
What does
sure.
that mean? It means that if you are a writer, you are not just hanging with other writers. If
Yeah.
you are a
Mhm.
blogger, you are not just hanging with other bloggers. There are people, I know people from all walks of life, from my magazine days to doing columns for Forbes to writing about professionals and influencers and people who are movers and shakers in their own industries, whether that's politics or celebrity or broadcasters. And so that opens up my network because I can bring it to my audience. And there's always some connection. Right now, nobody, and I'm going into my 40th episode, nobody has been a stranger to me.
Mm.
Everybody has been somebody vetted in my own personal life that I know, whether it's from an organization or my background or social or some way. And so I don't have one of those like fill out the form and we'll see if you're a fit,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And I still have a list this long of people who would like to be on the podcast. And for my launch week, I was so honored to have Cheryl Strayed, we have followed each other on Twitter. She's followed me for a number of years and retweeted some of my stories. And so there's, been a tangential connection.
Mhm.
And Ann Hood, I had taken a class with her many years ago. And so there's lots of connective elements with the people that are being on the podcast. And I love it. I just love it so much. It's such a great vehicle, not only
Yeah.
for promotion for the people who are coming on and for myself. And I've been focusing a lot on authors lately, I guess because I'm an author.
Yes.
And it's just something that I hope to continue and I hope to keep growing to get even more followers. And we're doing really well. I'm in the 10th percentile of downloads at the moment.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean,
Thank you.
your story I love because it's such a great demonstration of what our coaches that we talk to a lot talk about bringing transferable skills. Like you
Yeah.
were saying, it doesn't have to be that, job A exactly leads into job B because, they're exactly related or it's the next promotion. It's that you've taken so many of the skills that you have from one role to the next, whether it be writing or coaching or, the medical one, I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know this about you. That's amazing. Or even moving that into podcasting. I just think it's a really great demonstration of no matter how many pivots or pauses you take, you don't lose those core skills and you can always bring that to the next job, whether it's a pause or whether it's, a little bit different than what you've been doing before. So,
And
Definitely.
I would say to inspire people, like, because I feel that inspiration is so important, whatever you're focusing on next, whatever you want to do. So
mhm,
write down your skill sets, write down, everyone has them. If you are a fast reader, that's a skill set.
mhm,
If
Yeah.
you are good at curating information, you share your friends' work, you share things that are interesting, that's a skill set.
mhm.
Are you good at writing emails? That's a skill set. And
Yeah.
so look at it in a very, pedantic way, but yet in a way that enhances the natural abilities that you have because everyone has them. And I can't emphasize this enough. There is no competition. Do not compare yourself with anyone else because you have your journey, you have your purpose, and it will be done. You will do it, but you can't keep trying to measure up because you never get there. I think back to Jennifer Hudson, who
Uh-huh.
was on American Idol. She did not
Mhm.
win, but she knew her worth. And then she was on Dreamgirls with Beyonce. And she never was genuflecting at the feet of Beyonce, like, oh, Beyonce, Beyonce. I mean, we love Beyonce, but Jennifer Hudson knew her value. And soon the world did. You see?
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, I
Absolutely.
love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I could talk to you forever. And just because we're trying to honor some of our listeners who are not necessarily writers, and I'm glad you took the time to focus on your story that maybe can apply to a wide range of different people's experiences. But I know that we do have quite a few writers out there in the audience too. So we cannot recommend your book enough. Writing that gets noticed. And it really is the same level of just specificity and really getting to the nitty gritty of, step one, step two, step three that you bring to a lot of your articles, it really transfers over to the book perfectly. And so, depending on what you need, you can just flip to that chapter or you can go chronologically, start to finish, like whatever you need. It is just like having this writing coach in your pocket. And it's so, well, I guess not in your pocket, in your bag. But it's just so well written and it's so helpful and it's so like it just gets to it. I'm the nuts and bolts girl. I like to just get to like what do I need to know. It's not the fluff. It is just really really amazing information and so highly recommend it for anybody who is trying to do writing of any kind. And you also have coaching services, but maybe for someone who is just trying to figure out like, ooh, do I even want to go to that next level? This is a nice way to start and figure out so you know what you don't know before
Right.
you take it to that next level.
And I give writing advice on TikTok now. So
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, we still got to work on our TikTok. Oh my
I
gosh.
One of
love
these days.
TikTok. I'm obsessed with TikTok. I know you do your look, listen, I just want to tell you there's two fun things. One is Nudicrous the cat. It's a hairless cat.
I know Nudicrous.
It's Nudicrous. He just has such a big personality. He's like everywhere. You have to look. And then there's Cat Daddy Adventures. I'm obsessed
Oh, I
with
do
cats.
not know this one.
I lost my beautiful orange cat Percy last year. He was 17 years old. So I'm obsessed with cat TikTok. So Cat
Oh.
Daddy Adventures is the story of this man who has a fiance, or maybe they're married. I think they're married. And he has 17 cats.
Oh,
Oh
dear
my
God.
God.
One of them is a formerly feral, now friend cat named Buddy. And this is the most beautiful cat with like tiger stripings and like green eyes. And there's even a little love story, him and Lola, another cat. I mean, it's just, I'm
Don't get too
dying.
much more love. You're gonna have a lot more cats.
Yeah.
I dive down that TikTok rabbit hole along with my daughter, although she doesn't watch the stuff I do. I like the animal stuff and the makeup stuff. Makeup for over
Oh
40. Go for
yes.
that. That's great.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, I love it. We usually say for our look, listen, learns that we don't want to throw our guest in the hot seat first, but you just went right in there. But before we officially go into the look, listen, learns, we want to make sure people know where to find you and the book. And if they decide they do want coaching services, where's the best place to find you?
Sure. My website is EstelleSErasmus.com. And Freelance Writing Direct is on iTunes and Spotify and now YouTube. And you can find more information on my website. And for social media, you can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, on
TikTok.
TikTok, at Estelle S. Erasmus. And I also have a Substack now called Writing That Gets Noticed. And you can find information on my website. And I also have a newsletter through my website. So I cover kind of a lot in different places. I cover in the Substack, I did an editor on call for NYU, where I talked to a New York Times editor and put the information down there, and a Washington Post editor. So I cover a lot of that stuff there. And my blog on my website kind of covers more about publishing if you're interested in publishing and my own personal stuff.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. I got kind of tired
Oh.
just listening to that as far as like all the amazing stuff you're doing. Like, and plus all
Can
the
I say
momming. You're so busy.
Can I say one more thing? I am teaching a pitching webinar for Writer's Digest on July 20th. I don't know when that's going to run, but I'm pitching
Before that.
on July 20th, and that information is on my website under events. And I'm going to be speaking at the Writer's Digest conference in August and at the Atlanta Writers Conference in Atlanta, Georgia in November, and in the Writer's Digest Storytelling Virtual Conference in September.
Wow.
All right.
And as former attendees at a lot of your sessions, I mean, just such great information. So yeah, highly recommend if it.
We saw each other at Mom 2.0, did we
Mom
not?
Mhm.
too, but I think the first time I went to one of your sessions was actually at Blog U, was it?
Oh, goodness, that's right.
Yeah,
That
or
was
maybe,
fun.
and then also you've been to some of the Irma Bombeck, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, I
So
haven't
I
missed that.
think, yeah, whenever there's an Estelle panel, I make sure I go to that session. So
You're the
yes,
best. Thank
always
you.
such great information. All
This has
right.
been fun,
Well,
guys.
you're
This is
not done yet. We're not done with our look, listen, learns, girl.
okay. Okay, I have more. I did my prep. So,
Oh,
Okay,
good.
good. Okay, so even though we already got a couple of Estelle's look, listen, learns, we're gonna, for anybody who's new to the show, welcome. We are so glad you're here. At the end of each show, we just like to spend a couple minutes talking about some of the things that we are look, listen, and learning about. So we don't usually put our guests in the hot seat, but since you already put yourself there, do you want to finish yours, Estelle?
Yeah.
sure. So, for books, I love this book, My Father's List: How Living My Dad's Dreams Set Me Free by Laura Carney. And
Oh,
Mm,
she's on my show that will come out next week.
okay.
And it's a wonderful book because it covers the tactical of how she fulfilled her dad, who got killed by a distracted driver when she was
Oh,
25, sadly. But he had a bucket list, and out of a certain number, he only had achieved 5 items,
oh,
and she fulfilled his list and wrote about it. And it's an amazing book with a very spiritual component, which I like.
interesting.
And The Leaving Season by Kelly McMasters, and she's going to
mm,
be on my podcast. She'll be on Freelance Writing Direct this week. She wrote a memoir and essays about leaving a relationship and finding herself. And it's a really beautiful literary memoir and essays. And she uses metaphor and simile and braiding throughout. So I think it's really an exercise in craft, and she's a writing teacher as well. And
Oh,
I
wow.
also have a show that I want to mention.
Oh, we love shows. Lay it on us.
yes.
The Great. Has anybody seen The Great on Hulu?
I
Mm-mm,
haven't even heard of it.
mm-mm.
Okay, Elle Fanning plays Catherine the
Good.
Great of Russia, right? The
Oh,
famous
uh-huh.
Catherine the Great. And Nicholas Holt plays the king and Peter. And I don't want to give away the whole story, but it's a comedic look at Catherine the Great and how she rose to power. And it is funny and entertaining and brilliant. And I recommend everyone watch it.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I
good.
hadn't
We
even
just
heard of
wrapped
it.
up
I'll
a
have to go
show.
find it.
I'm going to add that one.
Yeah.
All right. And of course, your Hulu cats. Or not Hulu,
TikTok
your
cats.
TikTok
Of course,
cats.
I love that Missy knows who Nudicrous is. Oh, and my own podcast. Yes, yes, yes. My own freelance.
Oh my goodness. All right, Missy, do you have any look, listen, learns?
I have a few. I just finished looking at Based on a True Story, also on Hulu, with Kaylee Cuoco and Chris Messina. I love Chris Messina so much. But they start a podcast with a serial killer, and it sort of parodies the American obsession with true crime. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I don't know. We obsessively watched till we got through all 10 episodes.
Yeah.
They leave it on way too much of a cliffhanger. Like, I don't know if they're going to get renewed. But so
Oh,
it's a huge cliffhanger, but it's so watchable in the weirdest way. And it's fun to poke fun at the whole true crime podcast
yeah, we need a
situation going
serial
on.
killer co-host.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an easy watch, which is a funny thing to say about something so bloody, but it is an easy watch if you're looking for something like that. And I don't have a listen because I'm still listening to Wiser Than Me. I'm still catching up on that one. I don't know what week that was. That was my look, listen, learn, but I'm
Yes.
almost caught up. So I feel really bereft. I know that there will be more episodes, but I'm bereft that I'm almost caught up. I've been like,
You got me
just
started on it. It's really good.
God, it's so good. So I don't have a new listen. So I'm also looking at the book Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Just I think that was another one of our guests, Look, Listen, Learn at some point. I
Ah.
think it's been mentioned here before, but it's great. It's so much fun. In fact, I really would like to go read right now, even though I have things I have to go do. But it's a fun, great summer read. Highly recommend that one. And then I'm actually kind of ties in with today, learning more about craft, doing some rewrites, I'm not really even revising yet. I'm really rewriting, and signed up to take some classes and work with some professionals this summer to get to that next place. So that's what I'm doing. What about you, Suzanne?
Let's see. I only have a look today, but it's so good. It's Jury Duty.
So I've heard of this, but I haven't
Oh
seen
my
it.
gosh. Oh shoot, I don't even know what it's on. Is it Hulu? Is it it's one of
I
those.
don't know.
But it is the description is a documentary following the inner workings of an American jury trial through the eyes of juror Ronald Gladden, who does not realize that everyone except him is an actor. It is the amount of work put into I get it's not really pranking this guy.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it a gotcha? Like,
I mean, it is a gotcha. I'm not going to tell. We finally watched
yeah.
the finale, and I'm not going to
Okay.
tell you what
Okay.
happens. But
Because the premise makes me feel bad for this guy.
oh no, I had a really hard time going into watching it. I was like,
Okay.
I feel like there's like some moral issues, like ethically, I did not feel like this was right. I do not like people getting pranked. I
I
don't
don't
like it
either.
when people aren't in on the joke or whatever.
Mhm.
The one thing that helped me get through that is because it is as a documentary. So it's not like secret cameras that he's not aware that he's being filmed. So since they set it up as a a fake
Yeah.
documentary,
A mockumentary.
it's he's aware that he's being filmed, so he does have that choice of like things he's going to say or not say or whatever. The acting is so phenomenal, and oh my god, these characters are just bonkers. There's a few times throughout the thing where he's just like, oh my god, how is this not like a reality show? Like, this is crazy.
Poor
But this
guy.
guy is just so nice, and I don't know how they picked him. I need to
Oh.
find out more about like how they picked him. Like if someone nominated him, like nominate the nicest people that, would be good for this. But probably the funniest part is they have James Marsden. Do you know him?
Oh,
He's
I love
from
I
Dead to
adore
Me
him.
and
Mhm.
Westworld and stuff. And I've realized now he's in everything.
Yeah.
He actually is the token like actual actor because it's in LA, and like, oh, I'm on jury duty, and he's always very much like, oh, do you know me from this? And he's having this guy run lines with him,
Oh my
and oh my god, and he should win some type of award. And it's funny, I was just listening to Smartlist with Jennifer Garner, and I guess she is friends with him from one of the shows that they do together. And she was talking about when he was starting filming this, how this crisis of conscience of like
Yeah.
he was having a really hard time, like, are we messing with this guy? Like, I don't know if I feel right about this. But oh my gosh, I don't think they can ever do it again because people would be in on the joke. I mean,
Right. It's
they
tricky. Like, it's a whole tricky
oh, but
setup.
they do go into the production behind it, and oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Okay,
Again, so
maybe
if
I'll check it
anybody
out.
is like hears about it and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, that sounds really problematic and, makes me feel you'll get over it by the end of the first
Okay.
episode."
Good.
It's so totally binged right through it. It's so fun. It's
Okay.
really fun. Not quite kid. It's definitely 16 plus. We were gonna let our son watch it because we thought it was so funny, but they do have a couple episodes that are referred to sex in a very comical. Oh my god, you guys just need to watch it. It's so funny. Anyway,
Okay. All right. We need some giggles, so I
yes,
think I've
it's
had at it.
so many giggles. So yes, I highly recommend Jury Duty. But yes, so excited got to talk to you, Estelle. This is so
this is
much
great.
fun getting to catch up with you a little bit. Not
Thank
nearly
you.
enough. Now I want to go to one of those conferences you're speaking at.
Yeah, and I'm also I teach at NYU, so
I want to do
that's
that too.
and for Writer's Digest. So you could take a personal essay class or a pitching class or getting started in writing class, even if somebody wants to get started.
Oh my gosh. And we're going to have links to all the things and your book
Thank you.
Yes.
and your podcast in the
Yes.
show notes for anybody who's
you.
driving and didn't have a chance to write everything down. So we'll make sure we have links to everything in the
Yeah.
show
Please
notes.
don't write and drive.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And thank you for saying in the beginning that you had this one impression of me and it changed after you read the book, because I think that dispelling some of the notions that people may have of me, like, seeing me in one way, was something important to me to have in my book to see the realness of it.
Yes, I did. You accomplished it very much. I think it opened up a whole different side of you that even though we've even met in person, I wasn't aware of. So
Great.
highly recommend it on lots of different levels. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
if you're a writer or if you have a writer in your life, definitely let them know about it because I'm picky about my tips and it's good tips. So,
I love it.
oh, well, thank you so much again. We know how busy you are this
Yeah.
launch week and so
Thank
excited
you.
for you. So go rest and we
Yes.
hope
I have
to
to take
see
my
you again
daughter
soon.
to a party, but
Oh my gosh.
It
Okay. Yeah.
never ends.
There's
It
never
never
rest. I'm
ends.
sorry. You're a mom. It's summer. Just good luck. We'll see you in the
Yeah,
fall.
exactly. You'll see me then.
All
So
right.
great. Thank you guys. I
Take
appreciate it.
care. All
Bye,
right.
y'all.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you know someone else who could benefit from the episode, please be sure and share it with them. And while we're begging, please subscribe and rate us wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in our show notes or over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the A-N-D spelled out. In between shows, find us over at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. The links to that group and all of our socials can be found at momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you more than you know. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.